Hello everyone, welcome to 3DDesignAcademy.com. In this lesson, I will be showing you how to make the front corner of the Maserati MC20 supercar. Alright, so this is the setup file that I have. It's got a picture, well, it's a side view picture, and I also got the wheel flat already established. And this is the front corner that I'm going to be constructing. So you'll see that there is a body side that's continuing the front fender, and it's basically blending into the front. So I'm going to be showing you guys how to blend the side to the front in this particular example. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is to set up some curves for the fender over here. So let's grab a degree 2 curve like this. I'm just going to snap over here like this for the peak, and I'm just going to snap another one here like this. So basically I'm establishing this surface over here. So I'm just going to give it a little volume like this for the fender, and it probably needs to be a little bit lower because as you can see over here, it's actually going over like this. So I probably need to, well, actually it really depends on the angle, but let's take a look, and we can, if I need to, I can always do a refinement later. So I'm just going to snap the curves like this over here, and I'm just going to lower it down. Now I'm not going to make the transitional surface to over here. I'm just going to concentrate on the front, because when it gets to transitional surfaces to the body side, that involves a lot of refinement, and I just need to make sure that the proportions are correct, which could take a little time. All right, so I'm just going to establish a surface like this, and of course it's created in the XZ plane, so you just want to bring it out like this, and depending on the situation, you probably want to give it a little bit of volume. So I probably just give it a little volume like this, maybe use a stretch tool like that, and probably do the same thing over here as well. All right, so now that's done, I'm just going to block in some quick volume. So I'm just going to use the freeform blend tool with the position over here. I'm just going to say default over here, and I'll probably do connect ends over here. Of course, modified parameter should be off, and I'm just going to say proportional over here, give it a little volume. I'm just going to make sure that it's going in the right direction. I'm just going to give it a little volume like that. And because it's connect ends, I'm going to just bring it up here like this. And let's go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Freeform blend, default over here, and connect ends over here like that. Just going to snap it over here. All right, now I know that there's a peak, but that can easily be solved with essentially a fillet in the middle, so I think that's okay. All right, so the second thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to establish the center portion over here where the grill sits. Now, to be honest, I don't know, I don't have an exact idea where it is. So I'm just going to use the center over here just for the height reference. And of course, I do have the length over here. So let me actually do this. I'm just going to get a degree 2 curve like this, and I'm just going to move the pivot to the center, move it to the center of, well, basically center over here. And I'm just going to make it a degree 3 like this, and let's just turn symmetry on, and let's just scale it up like this over here. And let me just make sure that the height is good. I think that's pretty good. And I'm just going to give it a little volume, because if you take a look here, you'll see that there's a little plan view volume like that. So I'm just going to give it a little bit over here. Just going to snap over here like this, and I'm just going to snap to my box over here as well. Of course, if you look at this one, it looks like it actually has a little bit of volume this way too. So let's go ahead and do that as well. So I'm just going to tip it down just a little bit, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of acceleration by moving these CVs over here just outboard like that, and that should be good. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to establish the hood. Well, I'm going to establish a curve that connects from here to here, and I do have to create this volume as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste these curves over here and just bring it out like that. Now, depending on the situation, it can be a little bit higher, it can be a little bit lower. Really depends on the car and the design, but I would think that it probably needs to be a little bit higher. So I'm just going to do that. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to snap the curve from here to here like this. Now, the rear portion, I think it's supposed to taper a little bit, so I might just do that like that. And let's go ahead and do a freeform blend again. So I'm just going to do something like that, just for quick volume. And it does look like it needs to be a little bit more vertical over here. So I think I'm just going to pull these a little bit more outboard like this to give it a little bit more, make it a little bit more vertical like that. And depending on how wide this is, I might need to pull it outboard, a little bit outboard as well. So I think that's pretty good. And let's just connect this one over here like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make the hood. So let's go ahead and do a duplicate over here onto the other side. So I'm just going to say mirror, and I'm just going to do a bi-rail on this side like this. Now it does look like the peak is reversing as it goes towards the back. Of course, the actual hood is probably a little bit lower, so it does need to disconnect somewhere over here. But as you can see over here, this surface at least should be the same. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'm just going to, well, I should probably make a square. So let's do this. I'm just going to make a square like this. And of course, I do want symmetric modeling on for this curve. I'm just going to reduce the volume like this. Let's just go a little bit forward like that. And maybe I'll just reestablish the surface using a square like this. And well, it's still doing a reverse, so maybe I do need to increase the height over here. So let's go ahead and pick this curve up like that. Over here, I think that should be good. And I'm just going to move this one as well. And let's go ahead and connect the dots. Oh, I don't want that. I'm just going to pick over here. And let's see, it looks like there is a gap somewhere. So, oh, yes, this one over here. So I'm just going to pick it up. And I think there's a little peak. Now, it is a little bit negative over here. So depends on how it's established. You probably want to, I think I'm just going to make it straight over here. And I'm going to give it a little more volume so that it's not flat. Because, of course, the surface needs a little bit of volume. I think I can actually do a little bit more. Something like that should be good. Of course, I'm not concentrating on the hood, so I'm just going to establish a surface, and I'll have to do the corner over here. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. So I got a volume established here. I got a volume established here. That will have to be connected with the fillet. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to establish the surface for this one. So let's go ahead and get back to alias over here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snap a curve over here. I'm just going to drag it straight down. And I do want the volume to be somewhat similar to this one. So let's go ahead and move this curve over here like that. And of course, it does need a volume because, of course, the wheel flat is circular. So I just want a little volume this way. And I'm just going to connect the dots or, fill in the hole with a bi-rail. And let's just do curve segments like this. Okay, so I think that's good. So right now it's degree 6, but I prefer not to. So I'll probably do a little bit of cleanup after, but let's just go ahead and establish some of the surfaces first. All right, so now I have the center section over here. So I'm just going to establish the grill over here as well. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of volume this way just to make it similar in shape. And of course, if you look at this picture over here, it does go a little bit outboard. So think of it as, this surface over here, and it just needs to go outboard this way and this way. So let's grab the stretch tool over here. I'm just going to make it a little bit like this. I think I got a reference for this, so I think that's good. And let's go ahead and I'm just going to duplicate this one, or you can put it in a symmetric layer. Doesn't really matter. Maybe I'll do that for this one. So I'm just going to create a new layer like this. I'm just going to snap the curve over here, symmetry on. That way, it should have history like this. Okay, so I'm just going to turn curve segments off over here. And I think I'm just going to give it a little bit more stance like this. And depending on the situation, I might make it a little bit short, a little bit narrow over here. But that really depends on the proportions over here. So I think I'm just going to leave it for now. And depending on the situation, I might adjust it a little bit later. All right, so now let's go ahead and I'm just going to click on the default layer so that everything's created on default layer. I'm just going to create the side surface over here. I'm just going to open it up a little bit like this, and let's just go ahead and do a bi-rail. So it's going to be 1 and 2. Oops. One over here, here, and here. Well, it doesn't really have to be a bi-rail. Actually, you know what? Let's see. It does. Well, it's covered over here, so maybe that's okay. So let's try a rail first, and if I need to, I can always go back and create a bi-rail. Now the corner does look like it's actually going into this point. Maybe there's a fillet, I'm not sure. Kind of looks like it does, but well, yeah. Okay, so next thing, I'm going to go ahead and establish this surface over here. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to create a curve like this, and I'm just going to project it from the side, and let's just match the height. Now there is a little fillet over here. I think there is a little bit of surface break. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push this over here. And of course, I wanted it to snap to here like this. And the second thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to do it, give it a little bend. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. I'm just going to push it all out a little bit more. And I'm just going to snap it over here. Grab the CV like this. I'm just going to give it a little of volume. I'm going to use a stretch tool. Snap it there. Give it a little volume here as well. All right, so I think that's good. And let's go in and do a rail. So it's going to 1 and 1. So this curve over here, this surface or this edge over here. All right, so that's not too bad. And I'm just going to do this one as well, like that. That might be a little bit too much bend, so I think I'm going to pull it forward. Well, at least from the side view, it looks like this, but I think the bend is probably quite a little bit severe because, well, basically, this one is angled from the front view like this, whereas this one is stationary like that. So you just want to create a balance, and what you might perceive in 2D might be a little bit different than how it comes out in 3D. So you just gotta make an educated guess after you've basically built the surfaces. All right, so now that's done. Let's go ahead and establish this one. Now this one over here, actually, I might have made a mistake on this one, because if you look at this picture over here, you'll see that this particular, I guess, bone line or highlight goes a little bit more straight, a little bit more upwards. So I will probably want to do that too. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the connect ends over here, or the freeform blend over here. I'm just going to move this arrow over here like this, and I'm just going to do that. Now that will change the shape, so you just got to be a little bit careful on how it's done. And of course, this one is going to snap back over here, and there it is. Now, of course, you do want to check the highlight on this panel too. Actually, it looks like it's actually not too bad. So I think giving it a little volume, I think it worked. Also, of course, you could also make it a little bit more outboard to give it a little bit more stance, and that's of course going to have a little bit effect on the highlight. So you just want to be a little bit careful as well. All right, so now that's done, let's go ahead and I think, well, let's see. So if you look at this one over here, what I'm reading is that there's a surface here, and I think I'm reading a little bit bone line over here. So what I could do is the surface that I have, I can let that just be, and I could probably just trim it vertically in order to help with the creation of the surface, because I think it's supposed to intersect like this. So that's what I'm reading. Let's see. I think so, and this one does have a little crossover, like a slanted intersection, so I'll probably do that as well. So let's go back to alias over here. It looks a little bit negative, but right now let's go ahead and establish this one. So right now you'll see that the highlight is a little bit funky over here, but once there is a fillet, it should be okay. So let's see, let's just check. First thing I'm going to do is I think I'm just going to try to relax this just a little bit. I think that probably has a little bit impact over here. And yeah. And also another thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to do an explicit control over here and try to reduce the number of degrees as much as possible. So let's go ahead and check. So right now it's positional over here. Now this one doesn't really matter because, well, it's just a degree 2 curve that I'm aligning to. On this one, what I can do is I can just try to, oh, looks like, okay. So if that's the case, let's do this. I'm going to do a fit curve over here on the skin, on the wheel flat. I'm going to snap it over here, and I'm going to snap it over here. And let's just check the gap. So with a degree 3, it's not, it's actually positional, but I do want to go a little bit tighter. Okay, so I think that's much better. So now I'm just going to go ahead and do this one. So let's go ahead and fill it back in with a square. So it's going to 1, 2, 3, and 4 like this. And I'm just going to use an explicit control to reduce the number of degrees like this. 1, 2, 3, and 4 like that. And let's go ahead and do the same thing on this side. So I'm just going to delete this one. And again, I'm just going to do a bi-rail. Now this side is really not super critical at all because I'm not really actually blending it back to any surface. So it can probably be just rough. All right, so just bi-rail over here like this. And of course, it looks like there is a, oh, there it is. Turn the rebuild off and that should be good. All right, I know the highlight looks might look a little bit funky, but let me show you what to do over here. So I'm just going to do an insert. So I'm just going to, well, it really depends on the actual fillet size, but let's make it large because, well, I think this one has quite a large fillet. It usually does. So something like that. I could probably make it a little bit bigger. Maybe on this side, I'll do that. So again, I'm just going to do an insert. So just a little bit more. I think this side, maybe a little bit more like that. As long as it's somewhat equidistant from the theoretical, it should be good. So now I'm just going to trim this one over here, trim that one over here. And I'm just going to go ahead and do a free, well, I can do a freeform blend. The problem is with the freeform blend, sometimes it doesn't really match with the wheel flat. So, you know, sometimes a bi-rail might be a little bit better. But that said, however, I'm just going to do a freeform or blend curve over here. And let's just do a square like this. So it's going to 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 3 is going to be curvature. It's going to 5 and 5. Oh, actually, it shouldn't. This one should only be, well, it only needs to be degree 2 because the surfaces over here are degree 2. And there it is. And if you look at the highlight, it looks nice and smooth. So you don't really need to want the weird funky highlight that's going on over here because it should resolve itself. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to make this section over here. Since the surface over here is a little bit leaning rearward, actually let's go check. Yeah, I think it requires that much angle because I think it's, yeah, it requires a little bit angle over here as well. So now what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead and intersect this surface over here. Actually, I do need to know if it needs to go down. Okay, so it looks like this break is actually underneath this one. So if that's the case, I think this intersection point is good. So it looks like, yeah, at least I'm seeing something over here, like a sort of triangle transition over here. So let's go ahead and go back to alias over here. And this point, well, I should have a reference. Yeah, which I do. So I'm just going to snap a curve from here to here like this. And now let's go ahead and project over here. And what I'm going to do is just trim that one like this. And let's take a look at this picture over here. And I'm going to make sure that the surface over here is connected. Actually, you know what? This one needs to be a little bit, needs to be somewhat of a triangle. So instead of basically putting it over here, I think I'm just going to move it up just a little bit like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snap a curve over here. Let's look at the side view. And I think I'm just going to snap a surface over here like this. I think that should be a little bit better. So it's going to create a sort of a slanted intersection over here. Maybe that's a little bit too much. So maybe I'll just go back a little bit, just checking from the side view. and that shouldn't be too bad. And now let's go ahead and create a triangle over here. So it's going to 1 and 1 like this, and I'm just going to make sure the rebuild is on. Now it does look like because this is a degree 6, I think that's causing a bit of a problem. So let's go ahead and rebuild that. So I'm just going to delete this one. Let's go ahead. I'll have to rebuild that also. I'm just going to use a fit curve over here, and I'm going to just snap it over here like this. And let's see. Well, it looks like snap point is not being created, so I'm just going to extend it just a little bit beyond. Let's see if I can make it a degree 3. Looks like degree 4 is my limit. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a viral again. So it's going to 1 and 2 like this. Rebuild is going to be off. I think it's going to have to stay on, unfortunately, because of the span in the middle. So let's take a look. Yeah, all right. So it's not too bad. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to align. So I'm going to align this surface over here. I don't know why BiRail does that. It's really annoying. But let's do that. And I'm just going to say position influence to max, blending on, extra series of 1. So that whatever change happens here, it's continues on over here as well. Okay, delete the construction history like this. And I'm just going to untrim this one. I'm going to intersect it over here like that. Oh, actually, I did tell myself that I'm going to move it up a little bit. So I'm just going to use that. So project over here. And I'm just going to do a rail 1 and 1. So using the COS over here and the curve over here. Now you can use a COS, but it looks like it's actually intersecting pretty nicely. So it really depends on what you want to do. But of course, the problem is right now there are a lot of spans. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to chop this off over here, and I'll establish the surface over here. But before that, let's go ahead and make sure it's nicely aligned. So I'm just going to grab this one over here. Let's see, I'm going to say degree 5. Oh, actually, this one needs to stay. Let's say degree 5, reduce the spans, reduce the number of degrees, extra series of 2, blend factor of 0. Let's see if I can reduce it a little bit further. Okay, so degree 4 works. And now what I can do is I'm just going to snap this way. I'm just going to project it over here like this. So now I have a surface established of this corner over here like this. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to, let's go ahead and do this one over here. Actually, you know what? There are a couple of things that I do want to add. So I think I'm probably going to establish a little bit more shape on the front. So I'm going to get a little reference over here. I don't know if I'm really going to go into this one. Yeah, I don't think I will. All right. Although I probably at least need to trim it over here so that it's somewhat established. And after that, I think I'm going to start doing the fillets. But let's go ahead and continue in the next one. So we'll pick up the rest of it in part 2. Want to learn Autodesk Alias and digital sculpting? Then become a member at 3ddesignacademy.com, where you'll find hundreds of video tutorials ranging from basics, including curve creations, intermediate level tutorials such as this wheel, all the way to Class A modeling of the entire car exterior. Interested? Visit 3ddesignacademy.com.